Hey guys, my name is Maritza. I'm super excited to be recording this video for you guys. I'm new to homeschool. My family and I are new to homeschool. We are on our second year of homeschooling, and it all began because my son would come home and I started seeing little bits of self-consciousness. I began to see a decline in self-esteem, and he would say things like, he's dumb, he's stupid. And it was only because he was having issues with fluency, with reading. He couldn't read fluently, although he knew his sounds, he knew how to read a sentence. There were words he didn't understand, and he just couldn't say them. So I started noticing that, and I started seeing that as I was going to parent-teacher conferences, they really couldn't do much. I mean, in the school system, it's either you're at pace, you're on target, or you're not. And towards the end of the year, they told me that he would have to be retained. And as soon as I told my son that, and I think I made that mistake, when I told my son that there was a possibility that he would be retained, and he would have to repeat first grade, he was devastated. And it just added to what he already felt, the self-consciousness that he already felt. It added to the lack of self-esteem. He's a very creative boy. He's very creative. He's very imaginative. And when I started seeing the decline in the creativity and the curiosity, I was like, something is wrong, because I wanted the way that I want to raise my son or my kids. I want to fuel their creativity. I don't want to kill it. And I realized this. If you are contemplating homeschool, it's probably because your values as a parent or as a family are not aligning with the school system and what it's doing with your child. One of the things that I discovered in my first year of homeschooling, which I believe it's the most important thing that a parent needs to think about, is the deschooling process. Is curriculum important? Absolutely. Curriculum is important. But what I've realized now on my second year of homeschooling is that curriculum is part of the journey. It's about discovery. You're not going to get the right curriculum off the bat. You have to test and try and see what works for your child, and that only comes with time. I was fixating so much on the curriculum, what works for Nathan, what is good for him, which is the best one out there. And the reality is that I still see, although I did get good curriculum, and I've tried already about 3 different curriculums, I still see that I have to modify, and I have to cater to his needs. I have to get additional workbooks and things like that, just to further support the reading areas, the spelling, the phonics. So curriculum, it's something that you should not stress over. Instead, view it as a journey. Shift your perspective and see it as a journey of discovery. However, a lot of parents think that that's the tough part, and I believe that the toughest part of homeschool is actually going through the day-to-day motions of homeschooling. And part of that process is deschooling. As soon as you go from the public school system to the homeschooling, there's a transition. A transition takes place. It needs to take place. And the transition is having to reframe your mind and no longer think about education as this task of memorization. No, it's about learning. And learning and memorization, although children do learn based on what they memorize, it is more impactful when they learn certain things in depth. And how can you learn something in depth? When you spend time doing one thing. For instance, my son has had a hard time doing multiplication. So what do? We would spend extra time on the multiplication, and we wouldn't move forward to the next lesson. So that's the beauty of homeschool. There's freedom, there's flexibility. It's amazing. I love it. And that's part of the deschooling process. You have to reframe your mind and tell yourself, this is not a race. It's not about having your child be at a certain pace or at a certain level. It's about going at your child's pace, and in the meantime, fueling their creativity, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, engagement. The deschooling process also has to do with grades. I'm going to talk about grades on the next video that I will be releasing next week. But grades is very big because the school system works, the way that the school system works, it's basically achievement, performance, and results, right? So grades are very important. But when it comes to homeschooling, you have to erase that mindset, erase that way of thinking, and no longer focus on grades, but rather focus on what your child is learning. What are they really learning? Where are their interests? A child will learn what he or she is interested in. It's just like you and I. If I'm extremely interested in a certain topic, I'm gonna read about it. I'm gonna search. I'm gonna start Googling online. I'm gonna watch videos. I'm gonna purchase books. I mean, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to learn because there is curiosity. I want to know. So that's what happens when you homeschool. There's a transition. You're no longer focusing on this is the lesson. You're no longer focusing so much on the teaching aspect, but rather the learning process, which is it's a beautiful thing, but it does take some time because what I was trying to do was recreate the school's ways here at home. I caught myself doing that, and I'm like, wait a second, I can't do this. I have to create an environment that's inviting, that's welcoming, that is different from school. One of the components of deschooling is the fact that you can welcome creative moments. What do I mean by that? You can create your own curriculum based on what your child likes. For instance, my son is interested in coding. I bought him a coding course, something that he can do. He's still learning. I'm not sure if you know what coding is. I had no idea what coding was before my son. But it's a lot of words. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of typing. So he's getting all the spelling, all the grammar, vocabulary while he's coding, while he's doing his whole coding course, which is pretty cool. So there are so many ways for a child to learn that doesn't have to be conventional. It doesn't have to be what you are used to, what you and I were used to when we were in school. You can recreate a curriculum for your child, catering to his needs, his interests. And the beauty of it all is that you can create certain cultures within your home. For instance, we in our house, we have tea time or cookies and milk time. And usually during tea time or cookies and milk, we read a book. I will read a book to them. So I think that's a beautiful thing. And it's something that we created because we love milk. In my home, we love milk. And I love tea. So we combine that and we make it a moment to connect. Because every time I read something, I give them a chance to express themselves and talk to me about whether it's about the book or maybe a thought that the book sparked in their minds. So basically, those just are a couple of things that I love about homeschooling. And they are part of the deschooling process. They are part of you have to remove all these layers, what you have known about education. In a nutshell, deschooling is very important. You have to remove all the concepts that you know and start from scratch. Recreate a culture. That's one of the most important things because in the day in and the day out of homeschooling, there's a culture, there's an environment. And what you're implementing in that environment is very important because it's going to build your child up. It's going to give them confidence. It's going to give them freedom to explore, to expand their knowledge, but at their own pace and with what they love. So if you have any questions, I would love to hear your questions. And if you're new to homeschooling, I would love to hear what your experiences are with deschooling and the deschooling process, maybe your experiences with curriculum. I would love to hear about your experience because I feel that as a new homeschool mom, there's no better way than to learn than by sharing experiences. Every family is different, and this is why I created this YouTube channel because what works for one family may not work for another. That's one of the main reasons why I'm actually filming this video, is because it is so easy to fall into the trap of what someone else is doing, and then because it's not quite going as planned, or it's not quite going as how you wanted it to go, or it's you're not getting the same results as someone else, then there's disappointment and discouragement. And I'm here to encourage you and let you know that, hey, homeschooling, this process is your process, and your family is different, and we're all different, and our children are different. So we need to create an environment, create this culture, this environment, and I'm here to encourage you and inspire you to do that. Give you some ideas and moments of reflection. Thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you, and I will see you soon.